Hi guys, this is Mark. With this video, we are going to start looking into the Transactions API in Backendless. Transactions is a fundamental aspect of the database technologies. It ensures that the data stays consistent, that the data integrity is there, and your database is reliable in terms of the quality of data that it provides and maintains. Transactions become particularly important for applications that have a lot of users hitting the system, hitting the server side, and where the data is constantly changing. And as a result, data integrity, meaning that the quality that your data is clean and it is consistent and it truly represents the state of your application from the persistence perspective, it becomes very important to maintain the data integrity, and transactions is one of the mechanisms that enables you to achieve that. So what is a transaction? So transaction is one or more database operations that need to be executed in order to perform certain business function. And the key with transactions is that if you have more than one operation in a transaction, if any one of them fails for any reason, then the entire set of changes is rolled back. It means they are reverted and the database goes to the original state that was there at the time when the transaction started. In some of the videos that we have already published, and I hope you are familiar with, for instance, in the one where we set relations, the way we approached the operation of setting relations worked like this. We were creating the parent object, and then which was one API call, and then we were doing subsequent API calls to relate that object to other children objects. I think it was the lecture where we were setting one-to-many relations between the order and customer, and then order and the product. So here, without the transactions, it was 3 separate API calls, and if any one of them failed, then that would be just a failure of that API call. However, the proper way to do this would be to combine all of these operations into one transaction where the parent object is saved and then the relationships are created within the same transaction, thus guaranteeing that once it is done, then the data integrity is in place and all of it is persisted correctly, exactly as you would like. So in this video, I will walk you through of that specific example of saving an order, but using transactions. And then in the subsequent videos, we will be reviewing how transactions work, what operations can be added to a transaction, and how the Backendless API works for transactions in particular. So to start and to see transactions in action, switch to UI Builder. I already have UI Builder here on my screen, and there is a page template in Backendless Marketplace that I have prepared that already demonstrates Transactions API in action. So to create that page from the Marketplace, move the mouse over here and then click New Page. Make sure in the Create From you select Marketplace, and you will need to locate the lecture, this Transactions Overview Lecture page template number 44. Give it a name. So Transactions Overview can be any name you want as far as the name of the page. The template is selected and click Create. So this will create a page with exactly the same UI layout as the one from the lecture where we were looking into establishing the relations. However, the logic here to create a new order is done differently. It's done using the Transactions API. And once again, this video is specifically just to give you an idea of what a transaction looks like when you are doing it in Backendless. And with other videos, of course, we'll be taking a deeper look into various aspects of transactions. So here, to see the actual logic, if you click the Save Order button and switch to logic by clicking this jigsaw puzzle piece, this switches to the logic that exists to create a new order. To remind you how that page works when you run it. In fact, I will do it right now. So when you run this page, what happens is the UI populates two drop-down fields with information about the with a list of all the customers. So this is a list of all the customers, and then this is a list of all the products. And then let's just select them. And in here, you can modify the quantity, you can assign the discounts, and then when you click Save Order, the order is saved in the database. So here with this page, that order is saved in the database, and the relationships with the customer and product are all done in one transaction. So if anything goes wrong for any reason, whether it was a hardware failure, network failure, something is wrong with the actual data, then the order will not be saved, and then relationships are not going to be created, and you will get an error back that contains the information of what actually went wrong. We will be looking into the error reporting with transactions as well in a separate video. But for now, let's take a look at the actual logic that goes into creating an order with transactions. For this, going back to the logic, and here this is the on-click event that is executed whenever you click the Save Order button. So in here, you see that there is this block that says Run Transaction, and then the transaction is in here. It uses this function that I created called Create Transaction. This is sort of an in-page function that contains all the logic. And then I'm just invoking this Create Transaction function. So you will see that in this Create Transaction logic, this is where everything is happening to create this transaction. So number one, there is a block to create the actual transaction. So what this does is it creates this kind of a special wrapper that will contain all operations going into this transaction. And as you can see, I created the transaction variable, and then I'm using this block, add operations to transaction, and then I'm passing this transaction variable. In everything that goes inside of this block, add operations to transactions, become individual operations that I want to be executed as one transaction. And then these operations are create operation, which will create an order object, and then it is executed against the order table, and I'm putting together an order object right here. So this will create that object. The result of this operation, I'm saving in a variable called new order, for the reason that I will need to reference this in other subsequent operations in the same transaction. So the beauty and the cool thing about transaction support in Backendless is you can chain all the individual operations inside of the transaction, meaning the result of one can be used as the input for subsequent operations, which is exactly what's happening here. So create operation, I get that reference to that operation right here, which will actually be the new order object. And then in the second block, it is an operation set relation. So here, I'm just setting the relation between that order that was created by the first operation and the selected customer. And then the third operation is, again, set relation, where I'm linking that order with the selected product. By the way, in here, inside of the same logic, there is another function, which is the original logic that was reviewed early on in another video. And as you can see here, it's pretty much the same thing where we save the object and when we run these set object relations. The primary difference is that these are individual API calls. This is first API call, second, and third. And with transactions, once this transaction is assembled, then this internal function just returns this transaction object, the one that was created here, and then with all the operations now. So it returns this transaction object, and it goes back into here where we do run transactions. So there's one request that goes out to the server, and server just starts executing the operations in that transaction. And as a result, we do have this atomic nature of this execution. Atomic meaning that it's all included in that unit of work. We call it one transaction, where if anything inside fails, then the whole thing will be rolled back. And that's what's happening here. And then the rest of the logic is just some UI management to clear out the page and just indicate that the order has been saved and so on. So here, the most important thing is to understand that with Transaction API, with Codeless, you create a transaction and then you just add operations to this transaction. You start linking individual operations to create this chaining effect. And then you fire off that transaction and let the server do its work. So this is transactions. As you will learn later on, transactions, there is an additional wrapper, so to speak, above the transactions that actually make it easier for you to compose a more complex object that already has references to its children, whether you want to create relations or update properties and so on. And you can just send that object with all the relations to the server, and it will take care of saving the object, creating relations, so on. That is called Deep Save API that uses transactions, but we will be talking about Deep Save later on once we go through all the things that you need to learn about transactions first, and then we'll look into Deep Save. But for now, I'm just going to mentioning that the importance of understanding transactions is important, first of all, because it gives you tremendous power over the data management in the sense that's the transactional in terms of how the operations are executed, but it also gives you that insight as to how transactions work when you start using other APIs that rely on transactions, such as Deep Save. So here, the template is there. Definitely install that page, look through how things work. It gives you a fairly good idea, but still it's not very complex example here, but demonstrative enough. And with that, that's going to be a wrap for transactions overview. I hope you found this useful, and let's just continue learning transactions with what's coming next. Thank you for watching this video, and as always, happy coding.